Hi, and welcome to another episode of the Arc of Ohio podcast with Jen and Lindsay. Jen, how are you today?
I'm great, Lindsay. How you doing?
Oh, hanging in there.
Well, I'm excited because we have a returning guest to our podcast.
Woohoo!
That's when you're doing something right when people come back to the podcast and give
Yes.
updates. So we have Elena Bowers from the Ohio Treasurer's Office coming to talk to us and give us some updates on the Stable program. So, Elena, tell us again about yourself and why you're back.
Awesome. Well, hello again. Thank you so much for having me back. I am the External Affairs Manager for Stable Account, which is a program that is administered by the Ohio Treasurer's Office. We are a national program, but our outreach and our day-to-day and most of my travel is devoted around Ohio. So that makes it really fun to be able to connect with different groups around Ohio. And obviously we do a lot of work with the Arc of Ohio. So I'm thankful that you're having me back, and just to give some program updates, some updated contribution limits, and just to talk about why this program is so impactful and so important for families and self-advocates across the country.
Yeah. So, okay, remind us, what is a stable account? Because even though we are all supposed to know about this by now, because it's been many years, I just think it's something that we should still just go over. And who is it kind of geared for? And just kind of talk about what it would do for families.
Yeah, absolutely. So a stable account is Ohio's ABLE program. So across the country, there are many ABLE programs that currently exist. Anyone can enroll in them, but stable account is unique because we were the first state to launch. Ohio was the first state to launch their own ABLE program, and we called it stable account. So across the country, ABLE accounts, just in general, are savings and investment accounts aimed for people with disabilities to open. They can contribute their funds into that, whether that's their funds from their employment, parents, guardians, anyone can contribute into that account. But the purpose of those accounts are to protect the money in the accounts. This is all due to the ABLE Act that was passed all the way back in 2014. And in fact, we had many Ohioans that were down in DC, championing for this cause. And so when the ABLE Act passed back in 2014, 2 years later in 2016, Ohio created their own ABLE account, which was the first in the whole country. So you're going to, if you Google our name, or if you start researching about ABLE accounts, you're going to see a lot of different things, but stable and ABLE are essentially the same. Our program just happens to be a national program, which is great. But anyone that has a stable account, any funds that are contributed into the accounts are completely protected against losing your eligibility for means tested benefits. And those two big ones that we see are Medicaid and SSI, which is Supplemental Security Income, or SSDI. You don't have to be on those benefits to have an account, but of course, if you are eligible to have those benefits, then you know that there's a lot of different rules on how much money you can have in your personal bank account. So that's why this program was created. It was to give those people with disabilities and their families a peace of mind and that financial empowerment that they can have their own bank accounts, they can use it on day-to-day expenses, and they can, keep their benefits and still seek employment opportunities as well.
So what are the contribution limits? Like, I know that this has changed. So Can you tell us, like 2025, like how much can someone save in their ABLE account now?
So they do go up each year, which is great. Because this is a national program, we do abide by the IRS rules, but they do go up. They do go up a little bit each year. So starting in January of 2025, if you open a stable account for the whole year of 2025, you can contribute up to $19,000. That is a general contribution limit, which is great. Increased by $1,000 from last year. But if you are working, so if the person with the disability and the eligibility is also working, whether that's part-time, full-time, internship, any type of wages from employment, you can contribute an additional $15,060 into that account. So you can max out at $19,000, and that can still come from your employment as well. But for those account holders that are wanting to, look for more opportunities or take on more hours, or even get bonuses. We've met account holders that are able to get bonuses, or they get
Yeah.
some type of, pay increase. That's a different way that they can protect their funds in their stable account.
Yeah, that's great. I think there's always like this hesitancy, especially like it takes us so long. It's so hard to get Medicaid and
Yes.
SSI. And a lot of
Mhm.
families work really hard on that in like those transition years, after their child graduates, or the young person themselves is trying to get these services. And it's so funny that we think that there's like all this fraud because, like, I'm sorry, but like it's impossible to get on Medicaid or SSI. It's almost impossible for people. So
Yeah.
once you do get on it, though, you just don't want anything to threaten that. So I do get a lot of calls from people being like, hey, now that my son or daughter or myself, after now I have a job, I'm kind of worried. My boss wants me to work more, or I'm getting a raise. I told him I don't want a raise. I actually had people say, I told them, don't give me a raise. And I'm like, no, I want you to get a raise. So
Right, because they've worked hard for it and they've earned it. Like, it's awful to think that people have to decline it because of following the rules.
yes. And I think there's been so many self-advocates who worked really hard to get this additional $15,060, I think you said, for people who work, because we do want to incentivize that. And it just makes
Mhm.
sense. Like it makes sense for us to, I just, I just never want people to have to leave their jobs in order to keep health insurance, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So, okay, how would somebody open an account? So, like, what are the steps? Is this really hard to do?
Not. It is not. And we've been saying that. I mean, so we use an amazing account manager. It's called Vestwell State Savings. They're our national account manager. So they handle all the operational enhancements. And every single week, they are continually putting back into the program, making this very accessibly friendly, easy to use. So we do encourage online enrollment. So our website, stableaccount.com, is the only place that you can enroll and manage your accounts. We don't have any physical locations. We are part of the treasurer's office, but we don't have, it's not like a bank where you can walk in the bank and access
Mhm.
funds. But our online enrollment is the easiest. I've actually sat with people. Opportunities for Ohioans with Disabilities has this mobile unit, and we did these like tax events. And I've never really had the chance to like sit down with someone and like help them open an account, just because we give them enough information and they're able to do that with themselves or their families. So I was like,
Mhm.
sitting with them and going through the steps on the website, and it was sort of like the first time that I saw these updates, and I'm like, this is so easy. This is like took less than 10 minutes. But we do encourage the online enrollment. Obviously, we have paper enrollment forms. You can print those out, you can mail them in. Due to mailing, due to processing, it will take, up to, a couple weeks. It could take up to a couple weeks. But if you are over the age of 18 and you have a disability that makes you eligible to receive those benefits, such as Medicaid or SSI, then you fit the criteria of eligibility, as long as your disability was onset before you turned 26. So you don't
Okay.
have to be under 26. It's just that if your disability or your diagnosis or your disorder was onset before you turned 26, and you're eligible to have an ABLE account across the country. The good news, though, is that in 2023, the Able Age Adjustment Act passed. So the 26 restriction is actually going to bump up to 46. So if you were, injured in an accident, if you got a late diagnosis, if you have a health condition, or any type of situation, even, veterans that, have PTSD or any type of
Mhm.
injury that are on other types of benefits, they would be eligible, which is amazing. So that's going to open
It
the door
is.
for so many eligible account holders to enroll in the program. That doesn't happen until January 2026, but we're already doing a ton of outreach, a ton of advocacy for this, because that's a huge accomplishment in the ABLE community. So we're really proud.
Mhm.
Yeah, I feel like there's no other legislation at the federal level that we've seen just be so successful and to
Mhm.
continue to build on it. Because I think when we see things get passed, like when we saw Able get passed, like you not everybody gets what they want, but there was always this promise that we're going to continue to build on this, and we are. Like the advocates that
Mhm.
are working on this and the legislators that have, you know, uh, been just continuing to listen and like understand like where there's needs. I love it. That's great that the age has gone up because a lot of our folks with autism, or if you have like a traumatic brain injury, like you said,
Mhm.
it's really important that this be there for them too. I also want to talk to you about like the financial literacy piece of this because I also work with parents who their kids are working on the financial literacy, budgeting, and things like that in school, and then they get out in the real world, and it's like, where'd that go? Didn't we work on this? So, like, how can they use this stable account to kind of work on those skills, and why would that be an important piece of their financial literacy
I'm
resource?
so excited to talk about this. So, when this program launched, obviously, Ohio being the first, and even we're coming up on our 9th anniversary, and there's obviously, over 40 ABLE programs across the country. Many of them are more statewide or state affiliated, but our program's national. So,
Mhm.
we really tried to promote that this is a financial literacy resource. This is a vehicle for different types of savings, long-term, short-term. And even when I'm in the field, I meet parents and self-advocates that are just so confused. They've heard misinformation. They're really hesitant. They don't want to lose their benefits. And so I think the first step that we've done a pretty good job at, hopefully, over the last 9 years is just giving more awareness to what stable account is. That's sort of step one of this is what it's used for. This is why it exists. This is the impact, and this is how you can save your funds and protect your benefits, which is great. So this year, we've really focused more on, okay, now that we've really kind of, made the foundation there, we have over 46,000 account holders across the country, which is incredible. How can we
Mhm.
empower our account holders to get the most out of their account? How can we allow these, account holders to really use their account in different ways for different types of goals? And that is completely under the theme of financial literacy. And I think, schools are doing a better job at teaching kiddos about just the simple stuff. And then when you get to
Mhm.
college, or even just in your young adulthood, and even today, where I feel like we're all still learning, right? It's just
I
like,
feel like I'm still learning it. And then my daughter had a literati box come in yesterday, which is a book thing where she gets 5 books a month. You pick which one you want, you send it back. And one was about savings accounts and IRAs and how to start. It's insane, like for a 7-year-old. And
That's awesome.
I looked at my husband and I was like, I'm gonna read this tonight because very much am not like it shows her how to invest at a young age. It's very like age appropriate, but I
Wow.
mean, it's insane like what they're learning now.
That's
yeah,
great.
that's amazing. That's and
Mhm.
and that's what we're really trying to focus on, because I think that, yes, stable account, it's not a typical checking account. It's not a typical
Mhm.
savings account. It is a savings and investment account. So when you open your account, you can choose from 5 different investment options. We have one option that's just bank safe, which is a typical, we call it our super savings account. It's getting a pretty good return right now, but
Mhm.
I would say about 65% of our account holders have all of their money in our bank safe option. And that is just a typical savings option. And then we have 4 investment options. So you do have the opportunity to learn a little bit about, oh, this is the growth option. This is the income option, different there. But then kind of what's next? What can if I have a long-term goal of retirement, or I want to, build up my assets to be able to, use that for, long-term home care or rental, or even put money down for, a down payment for a house, how can you use your funds to do that? So we're actually in the works of almost publishing it, a stable account financial literacy guide. So it'll have about 6 topics that are related to getting the most out of
Mhm.
your stable account. So, how to use your account on day-to-day expenses, how
Mhm.
to use your account for budgeting if you do have, bill pay and options. We have other topics all about, the investment side, what's a growth option, what's a stock, what's a bond, those types of keywords. Um, and also just giving some light to testimonials and ambassador stories of how we've seen our account holders get the most out of their accounts. So we want to continue the education and awareness of what these accounts can really do and empower for our community. And I think that just allowing our families and self-advocates to see that, oh yeah, this is a financial literacy vehicle in some way. You can use it with other types of programs like special needs trusts. You could use it with, your college savings account if you have one as well. And there's just different ways that you can really rely on the Stable account for different types of goals, whether those are short-term or long-term. So we're excited. That will eventually be housed on our website at stableaccount.com. But within Ohio, we're definitely going to be, sending that out via email. It'll be, kind of these PDF documents. And then eventually we're hoping to have an interactive tool on our website where it'll be like a drop down where you can view those documents, and we're hoping to expand on it. But we don't want anyone to ever feel like the Stable account is this, I don't know what it is. It's scary. I don't trust it. There's just a lot of misinformation. So if we bring it back to why it was created to begin with, and really, put this emphasis on this is to help our account holders, to give them that financial empowerment and to give them that peace of mind, then I think we're going to continue to bring awareness to it and to help families be able to rely on it more.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Excited.
I would love for like our schools and high schools to have that, so that they
I
can
wish
include
that
that in their budgeting tools.
Yeah, they could offer it and teach and show, and that would be a nice.
Yeah. Tell us some of those stories. Do you have like a couple stories like offhand that you could just give us that I like to share with people, like, especially because we get a lot of the same kind of questions from people. And I'm like, I'd love to be able to share here on the podcast. And then like in my own work, just be like, hey, I heard about this girl who saved using this, and this is how she used the funds. And it helps to give them like a concrete example. So do you got any of those?
I do. I have so many, but I'll stick to one because it was actually one of the questions you had asked me, Jen, about, helping a family if they have a young child. So my family friends, the Wallings, we did a video with them. So their video is like actually on our website. But the Wallings, they live up in Powell, Ohio. And their daughter, Ruthie, was born with a really rare heart condition when she was, at birth. And then over the years, she had multiple surgeries. She was given a pacemaker, and just over the years, they didn't really know what her life was going to look like. And she was making these milestones, but then would have health conditions. And so at some point, her parents decided to open a Stable account for her, probably when the program was created. And they just would put money in each year, whether that was going to be used for her medical expenses or college someday, but the money eventually was just going to end up being for her and her needs over time. So when I met her, she was this little 11-year-old. She was this blonde, so cute, so fun. I met her at my former job at a country club, and I would babysit for her, and we would hang out, and I would always hear that she would be going through another surgery, and then she'd have this milestone and another surgery, and she just had so much, support in the community. And then when I got the job at Stable, her parents messaged me and they're like, "Oh, Ruthie has a Stable account." And I was like, "Oh my God, full circle moment." I'm like, "What's Ruthie up to these days?" And she's like, "Oh, she's 16. She's, driving. She's thinking about college." And I just, I think back to when she was so much younger and she was just going through so much. And to hear that she not only is healthy and thriving and just so cute and so fun and just so part of the community, and she's thinking about college, it just started to make me think like, that's great that she has a Stable account, because at the time they didn't know what her life was going to look like. And obviously anything can happen to any of us at any time, but when you have a child with a disability or a condition, it just changes your whole perspective on what the rest of that child's life could look like. And a lot of our account holders and their families will open this account for their young child because they know that they're going to have this disability for the rest of their life. And every single chapter and milestone is like, we did it. Okay, now it's graduation. Okay, they're 20. Now they're, and then we meet families and they're, I'll be at a presentation and a dad will come up and he'll be in his 60s and like, my son lives with me and I just got to figure it out of what's next. And it's like, then they're at that part of life, right? So I just want to say that this program can fit so many different families and demographics and dynamics, and you don't have to be 18 to have the account. It is a financial product and banking product, but so many families can open an account when their child is very young, and they can manage the account, they can contribute. But the money in that account will be for Ruthie when she goes to college, which is amazing. So she can actually the Stable account funds on college expenses, even medical expenses if need be, and anything that's going to improve her quality of life. So that video is actually on our website under our resource tab we did a really cute testimonial with her and her family if you want to hear her story that way.
Yeah, that's
Mhm.
great. I know.
Mhm.
There's one I think for a lot of us, like when we have like little kids, like my son has autism and you just don't know what the future is going to look like. You're like, well, I don't want like a 529 because I just don't know if we'll ever use that. You know,
Mhm.
like that's what I was thinking when like he was so little. And then when I started doing my research about stable accounts, I was like, oh, we could use this for so many things. And like just recently he did his like transition plan like in his IEP at school and they were talking to him about independent living skills and I mean, I just assumed because he's such a mama's boy and like I do so much for him that he would tell them, I'm gonna live with my mom forever. No, he told them, I'm gonna live in an apartment with my friend. I'm moving out when I'm 18. And my husband and I are like, what? So I'm like so glad that we have some things started so that he can like do what he wants to do because you just never know. Like what you want to do is
Mhm.
prepare for the best because, you don't wanna be stuck in a situation where you're like, "Oh, you actually did, like, get to that point where you can live on your own, and then you don't have the funding to do it or the, just the
Mhm.
plan," like,
Yeah.
it's good for families to be able to plan so that they can use that funding and, like, just the tax benefits of it alone too, like you said, like, every family's different and all of our income levels are different, but I have friends who are like, "I just use it for taxes," because we're like it's like basically like you're trying to save money for your child who has a disability, but you also, like, don't pay tax on that money. So
Mhm.
you can and your friends and your family can put in there too, so
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
great. The
absolutely.
other thing I wanted to touch base on was what's going on in our legislature. So, I just was on a call yesterday about the budget, and I know you said, there's a Senate bill, regarding estate recovery. So, like, another reason I've heard people say, "Well, I don't want a stable account because if my child does pass away," which for some of us, that is a true thing. Like, some of our kids don't have a long life expectancy, or just an unpredictable one, and, they don't want a stable account because they feel like that there's that clawback that, like, if your child dies, has a stable account, that Medicaid can come back and take the funds out of there, to pay back, the Medicaid that you got, basically. So, I know that there's something in the budget that they're working on, and I know that there's this Senate bill. Can you talk to us a little bit about that and where we are in that process and maybe just, like, clean up what I just said? Because maybe that didn't make any sense.
No, it did. Yes. This is I know budget time is coming up and we've been working so hard on our budget. Obviously being the treasurer's office, that's what we got to do, right? Um, our budget is looking really good right now, but the one thing that is what we're really excited about is it's Senate Bill 128. And this came to us actually last year, at one of our advisory board meetings, which, obviously Gary Tonks is part of, and he's a member and
Mhm.
fantastic. But yeah, across the country, there are some states have actually passed legislation that have restricted Medicaid, their state Medicaid, to be able to take funds through the clawback or estate recovery. It's either Medicaid clawback, payback, estate recovery out of their state's ABLE program. I think there's almost like 15 states that have passed legislation. So we've been monitoring that over the years and just wondering like how that would work in Ohio. But as you said, I mean, one of the things that we hear is one of the misinformation pieces that we hear about stable account is, well, if my child passes away, all that money goes back to the state. Well, that's not necessarily true. It doesn't go back to us. It doesn't go back to the state, but Medicaid can put a claim on the funds after the estate holder. So if my daughter has a stable account and she passes away, before Medicaid can put a claim on her account, I can use her funds for her funeral. I can pay outstanding
Mhm.
bills. Great. So there's a lot of protections outside of what a
Mhm.
typical like bank account would be. But after that, yes, Medicaid can put a claim on the funds and that account. And that obviously, doesn't sit well with some families. They don't, think that that's fair, and that's a whole, different conversation. But we were looking into how can we do that in our state. So we, introduced it. Senator Andrew Brenner actually is the individual that is leading the cause behind this, which is great. He sits on our advisory board as well. But basically, money in the stable account would not be subject to claims made under the Medicaid State Recovery Program. And I think that it's gotten some good, positive support so far. But if that passes, then that would, provide our account holders with peace of mind, ensuring that their money will remain with their estate or beneficiaries upon the event of their death, rather than their funds being subject to being taken by the state. So we're hoping that this gets some traction this spring. It should be going to some committee hearings, and then there'll be a vote, and we'll see what happens. But outside of that, also within Senate Bill 128, we also made a proposal to that the Treasurer of State would pay account fees on behalf of all Ohio account holders. So this change would not subsidize investments or asset-based fees, but basically that account fee that our account holders pay each year, it's $15. Starting hopefully next year, they would not have to pay that. So we would be covering the cost for that. So we're always trying to, put back into the program. And I think that will be a positive, addition to the program. And we'll obviously let our partners know in Ohio once this does get some, traction. And if this passes, we'll definitely do a big press release about it. So we're excited about that.
I'm glad we got to talk about this. I think I'm out of questions. So can you just give us one final update to kind of wrap us up here and let us know anything else we need to know about our stable account program in Ohio?
Yes. So last April, for Able to Save Month, we launched our new enrollment incentive for Ohioans. So across the country, to open a stable account, there is a minimum $25 required to get the account started. You obviously can contribute more than that. But for Ohioans, as soon as you make that first contribution of at least $25, you'll get $25 back. So that is something that we're always thinking about, of just putting back into the program. And we're hoping to continue to do that, every month for our national account holders. But for Ohioans, it's you can do that at any time. But for the month of April, across the country, we opened our enrollment incentive to not Ohioans, but the whole country. So that will give some benefits to our national new account holders as well. And then also for, as I mentioned, our financial literacy project, we're really putting more work into that. Hopefully that should be published soon. And we'll be able to share that with our Ohio partners, including the ARC of Ohio. And that'll just be another great resource that our new account holders and current account holders can rely on and look to if they have certain questions about, the usage and management of their funds and how to get the most out of their account. So we're excited to share that.
Yeah, when we get that, we'll put it in our newsletter, because I know Gary will give that to us right away, and he'll be like sharing that all over the place. So perfect. All right. The website is www.stableaccount.com.
Yes.
Or you can call 1-800-439-1653. And there's also an email. I'll put it in the show notes for anybody who wants it. And thank you, Elena Bauer, so much. I feel like we're set, and these are rough financial times, so we need this information to plan and make sure we are all set and our kids are all set. So thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you so much. I appreciate all the work you're doing and appreciate the partnership. And I will come back anytime to give updates. We got some good stuff going on for the rest of the year, and hope to connect again.
Awesome. All right. Well, yeah. Hit us up anytime. Take care.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Oh, there we go.